We've got some Arizona basketball to preview. We've got some Arizona football to preview. And we're going to talk a little bit of Arizona women's basketball recruiting as well. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right. Now, like I said, we've got a lot to get to. We're going to hopscotch three different sports here. But the first one we wanted to talk a little bit about was Arizona men's basketball. That's obviously what drives the city. So let's talk about it. Not a big game. Arizona should win. But Arizona Southern tomorrow at 7 o'clock here at McHale. Now, here's what I can tell you about Southern. They're basically a worse version of Nicholls State. Now, you might say to yourself, what does that mean? Should Arizona win by 500? Well, I'm not saying 500, but this is a game that Arizona should win. But quite frankly, this is a game that I like, though, for Arizona to have because, honestly, when you play teams like this, you also know that they play up and down. They get up and down, and I think that's what's, if you're Tommy Lloyd, that's what you're excited about. There's nothing more annoying than playing teams that really don't want to, play the kind of brand of basketball that they normally play. They look to slow it down and basically keep the game close. There's none of that with these guys. They look to get up and down, and you know what? That I'm excited to be able to watch that unfold right there. Now, from an Arizona perspective, what are we looking for? All right, the first thing you're looking for is to continue the great continuity that they showed in the first realm. Now, 30 baskets or 38 baskets on 30 assists is absolutely fantastic. There's really no other way to put it. It's absolutely fantastic. But you also have to realize, too, that Arizona right now is looking for has to slow things down a little bit here. Here's what I mean by that is that when you watch that first game against Nicholls State, yes, Arizona looked fantastic offensively, but they were careless with the ball. That's something that they need to watch here. And this is going to be a good game for them to be able to watch what exactly is going on here. Now, but player by player, Pella Larson, can you continue to get me 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists? Same with Azuolas Tubelis. We've talked every single game going in. Need 18 and 8 from Azuolas. And you know what? If he gets more than that, that is absolutely fantastic. But again, when you look at it, that's the guy that needs to be the driving force. Kirk Kriisa, we talked about it. All I care about is his shooting percentage. He shot well in that first game, albeit not a ton of shots, but he did shoot well. Didn't turn the ball over, didn't do anything stupid. So that's kind of where you're at now with those three guys. Then Cedric Henderson Jr., can he continue to be the player that, is kind of that jack of all trades, for lack of a better term? He can defend a little bit. He can make the open three. He can finish around the hoop. I thought he fit in very well to what Arizona's looking to do there. And again, the big man, Umar Ballo, wanted 12 and 8 before the season. I don't see any reason that he can't be 12 and 8. I think that he's a 12 and 8 double type guy. He should always be flirting with that. And there was nothing to dissuade me from that opinion in that first game. Then you hit the bench. Obviously, Courtney Ramey is out. We know that. But he'll be back in a couple games. But Henry Vasar coming off the bench. The praying mantis, as we call him here. He's about 7 foot with about a 9-foot wingspan. Very, very long, very active. You can tell that he's still growing into his arms a little bit. But there's a lot to like about him. Dylan Anderson, my guy. A lot of people soured on Dylan Anderson. They said, not a big fan of Dylan Anderson. He kind of wandered around in high school, didn't really play the way that he should have. I didn't care about that because I knew once he got to LA. I knew once he got to the U of A, the Tommy gun would say, no, you're not going to be playing on the perimeter. You're 7 foot. We're going to play you inside. And Dylan Anderson has taken to that. And not only has Dylan Anderson taken to that, he's also reframed his body. He looks much different than he did at this point last year. And that is kudos. That is a testament to Dylan Anderson and the work that he has put in there. Again, big things coming from Dylan. Adama Ball. Now, we called Adama Ball before the season the ultimate wild card. Can he be that? I'm very curious to see where exactly he can be that dude. Because if you were to tell me before the year, 4 points per game, sure. If you were to tell me after, that he was going to be 11 points per game, okay, sure. He looks like he's going to be ready to shoot. He looks like he's going to be able to really score, and I'm fascinated to watch him develop. Again, you've got to remember that he is young for his grade. He should be a freshman, and again, he came in early. And I like that too. I don't understand the parents that hold their kids back 2 and 3 years sometimes to get to college when they're 21. If your kid's good, he's going to be good. That's just the way it is. Adama Ball is proving that. I look for big things from Adama Ball going forward. I also think that you're probably looking at a player who, if things work well, he could have a Michael Dickerson type trajectory to his career. We're going to talk about that later on in the week. So then at the other time, you've got, Kylan Boswell. Boswell looked really good in that opening game. I know that he turned the ball over a little bit. Don't like that, obviously, but he also was a player that, we're going to cut him a little bit of slack here because, again, he's young and he should be 17. I'm very curious to see how exactly he continues to progress here. Now, but he is that point guard of the future. I'm also really big on him as the point guard of the future because I don't believe that he's a great NBA prospect, but I don't care about that. I believe that he's a great college prospect, and that's all I really care about when it comes to the U of A. So those are the things to really keep an eye on. Philly B is probably going to get a little time as well. I'm a little surprised if they don't redshirt him because I don't think he's quite there yet. But either way, Philly B is going to be good. And a big tip of the cap to KJ Lewis for officially signing with the University of Arizona. I believe that KJ Lewis is very underrated nationally. I believe that KJ Lewis is a player that, barring injury, will play in the NBA. And I do believe that he's going to be a really good player at the U of A. And I don't believe it's going to take him a lot of time. I think that he's going to be able to hop in there and be able to make some headway very, very quickly. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at, though, with Arizona men's basketball. I expect them to blow out Southern. Again, tip of the cap to Southern because they definitely they play fast. I'm hoping that they continue to play fast. Now, looking at, we're going to talk a little bit Arizona football now. Now, when Chip Kelly took over at UCLA, obviously this week's opponent, it was met with huge ovations because, again, you looked at his record at Oregon, you looked at his record at New Hampshire, and it was hard to really, argue any of that. Now, where I'm fascinated to see, though, is that the coaching staff at UCLA, the administration at UCLA stuck by him. Because, again, he didn't start off fast, had a couple losing seasons, then a 500 year, then an 8-4 year. This year they've taken off and they're in the top 10, and they're a fantastic team. And there's a lot of reasons to like what you see from them. The first reason why is Dorian Thompson-Robinson, returning for his 9th year. Just kidding, but he has started essentially from day one. He's perfect for what Chip Kelly wants to do because he can take off, he can run, he can do a lot of different things out there. He's an impressive dude he's a very impressive guy just all the way around. You watch him as well. He's a guy that just seemingly gets it. Now, with Chip, though, has built this team up the right way. When he took over, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but when he took over, the big thing for him was that he was going to play a lot of freshmen. He was going to play the kids early and get them ready. And now you're seeing the fruits of that labor right now. With Jed Fish talked about it at his presser today. He said they want to somewhat emulate what what he was able to do at UCLA. And he said, you know what? He stuck to his guns. He knew what he needed to do, and he went ahead and he did it. And he had an administration that stuck by him. Now, Arizona, looking at this depth chart right now, this is a fascinating situation here unfolding because Arizona next year is going to be really, really good. But just look at what you have right now. You've got T-Mac, your freshman wide receiver. He should be a monster next year. Then you look at that next receiver position, Jacob Cowing. Jacob Cowing, if he's been banged up a little bit this week, and Jed Fish was asked, what happens if Jacob Cowing, and he said, Kevin Green, he said, is going to be a really good player here. He said Kevin can get open. Kevin can make plays. You could just tell that Jed Fish is a big fan of Kevin Green and what he brings. So even if Jacob Cowing can't play if he leaves, I think you have to believe that he's going to be that receiver position, that F wide receiver position is going to be good. Then you look at the line. Here's where it gets fascinating. Jordan Morgan, 6'6", 320, a junior. He could be in the NFL next year. I mean, he's an NFL player. I was wrong on him. I didn't really see it. He's been very good. Then next to him, though, now that's where it gets interesting. Wendell Moe, Big Wendell, the freshman out of Long Beach Poly, 6'2", 360. He's gotten into much better shape. We're now at the point, though, with him where he's going to play. And assuming nothing goes wrong, he's probably going to play for the next 4 years at that position. You could tell that he was you could just tell that Jed Fish is very happy with him. Then Josh Baker at that center position, sophomore, performed well. Then you got Jonas Sabanea and Peyton Fears. Sabanea is a monster. He's going to be a very high pick when he is eligible. And then Peyton Fears, he's okay. He's a senior, but you know what? With Borjan, with Lange, there's other guys that can probably step in there and do a decent enough job. Then you got obviously Jaden DeLora and Noah Fafita, that position, and then you got Braden Dorman coming in. That position is set for quite a while. And then at the running back spot, you got 3 guys that could all come back, and they're all good. Michael Wiley, DJ Williams, Jonah Coleman. Then you got Kean Burnett and Tanner McLaughlin at a tight end. Both those guys will be back. Then you got Dorian Singer. He's going to be back as well. The offense next year should absolutely be fantastic, and there is every reason to believe that it will be fantastic. Now, let's look over on the defensive side a little bit, and because we're kind of comparing and contrasting a little bit what UCLA was able to do with Jed Fish, what UCLA was able to do with Chip Kelly and where Arizona. Now, losing at one of the DN positions, losing Hunter Echols is a big loss. He's not great, but he's good for about probably 7 or 8 sacks this year when it's all said and done. Might make an NFL roster, probably not, but he's decent. But what I do love U of A doing, though, is you're starting to get Sterling Lane time there. Big fan of Sterling Lane, 4-star kid of California, big dude, 6'3", 220. Get him in there, get him to start playing. And at the end position as well, Russell Davis, similar, 6'3", 210, skinny dude. But again, he's got a burst off the football that is going to be very, very good. So again, right there, those are your end positions. That's where things look for the future. And then you got Uiagalelei, freshman starting at tackle. And then you got Keon Bars, and then you got Kankaika behind him. All those guys, with the exception of Bars, who is a junior, are all underclassmen. So they'll be back. They'll be better. And then the linebacker position, that's where it gets a little fascinating. Obviously, Jacob Manu is going to be a stud as long as he is at the U of A. He'll be, he's a starter until he leaves. Then you got Jerry Roberts. He'll be moving on. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that other linebacker spot. Not really sure. We'll find that one out. We're going to break down the secondary in just a second. See what I did there? But let's talk about upside first. Upside is where it's at. You want to save money. You want to save whether that's on your groceries, whether that's on gas, you name it, Upside's got it. And the great thing about it, too, is that you can go on there, you put in Locked On Wildcats, and you can get a discount as well. Again, I can't tell you how many people are using Upside, and they're getting cheaper gas, You know what? In this day and age, the economy being somewhat tough, utilize whatever you can to get some money. That's where upside is at because, again, it makes a lot of sense. All right, now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with you. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, this segment is brought to you by BetOnline. All right, now we're going to get to the picks here in a second. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the secondary and the young secondary. Gunnar Maldonado, I'm not a big fan of. He's just whatever, but he can be back if he's obviously back if the coaches want him. Christian Roland Wallace feels like an NFL player. Big fan of him. He's a junior. He can be back. Wouldn't surprise if he leaves, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he stays. And then after that, you've got Traden Stukes, Ephesians Prysock, Takario Davis. Stukes to me is okay, but you also want to have a little bit of a more talented guy back there, for lack of a better term. And that's where Prysock and Davis come in. Big fan of both of them. I think they're going to be starters here, and I think they're going to be problems. Then you look at the safeties. I like Jackson Turner. Christian Young, to me, is addition by subtraction. I've never really understood the hype with Christian Young, but, whatever. It's I'm not a coach. They know more than I do. But this team, though, you look at it, this is a young team that I think is going to cause a lot of problems next year for a lot of teams. And if I was on the BetOnline Sportsbook app, that's where I would go. I would say, you know what? I would start looking at over-under wins for Arizona next year. I would say, you know what? Let me see what I can maybe finagle there, because Arizona was a little undervalued this year. Told you before to get on the BetOnline Sportsbook app and say that, you know what? I'm going to bet on Arizona to the over 2.5 wins. Now, granted, Arizona might only finish with 3 wins, but you would have still won if you were on the BetOnline Sportsbook. So again, check it out, and it's easy to utilize as well. That's what's so cool about it. Like, a lot of people are overwhelmed by this stuff. You get on BetOnline Sportsbook, you know exactly where you're going. All right, now we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit Arizona women's basketball recruiting, and then we'll get you ready for Friday. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, Arizona women's basketball recruiting now. If you don't know by now, then you should know Adia Barnes is a superstar. When she, obviously, before Ari McDonald, Adia Barnes was the best player in school history, and gets you within a basket of the national championship a couple of years ago, which is still wild to think about. And in the last 2 years, she's brought in 2 top 5 recruiting classes. Now, this recruiting class could turn out to be the best in the country. You've got Montoya Dew, you've got Brea Cunningham, and you've got Jade Williams. Now, those are 3 top 15 players right there. You add that with a Kaylin Gilbert, with a Maya Najee, with a Lamaya Hilton, and a Paris Clark, and you got 7 total possible stars there, WNBA type players. And Adia's not done yet. And one thing that we know about her is she's always has a trick up her sleeve. Remember last year when she started losing players and everyone's like, what's going on with Adia? Is, the foundation cracking? And the great PJ Brown told me at the time, from the Arizona Daily Star, by the way, follow her on Twitter, PJ Brown09, your one-stop shop for all things Arizona women's basketball. She said, don't worry. She said, Adia's got a plan. And guess what? Lo and behold, Adia did have a plan, and it worked. So, again, don't doubt her. She knows what she's doing. This team is going to be really fun this year, and I do believe that as long as she's here, she's going to keep recruiting at an awesome level. And I do think that Arizona is going to be competing for national titles for the foreseeable future. I talked about before the year, I said that I think that this could be your best team, and I stand by it, because I think when you look at the talent across the board, from scoring to athleticism to defense, you name it, Arizona's got it. And I think that's what's also very exciting if you're Adia Barnes, is that you've now got a roster where you can really play with a lot of different options around the board right there. So great time to be an Arizona fan. As always, it's always a good time to be an Arizona fan. Arizona basketball under the Tommy gun is right where everybody wants it to be. Arizona football is on the up and up with Jed Fish. And then on top of that, as we all know, Adia Barnes is about as big a star as there is in the city of Tucson. All right. Kind of jumped all over the place with a fun pod today. We will be back with you tomorrow. And as always, really appreciate you keeping it locked on Wildcats. And I'm Mike Luke. Again, we'll be back with you talking all things Arizona tomorrow. Have a happy